Hey guys, Mr. Bowman here. Today's learning objective is in blue, and we're learning to use tables to calculate the probability of events, including conditional events. And that conditional side of things is a little bit different. And just want to note something about the notation. So what this notation means, the probability of A given B. So what that means is B has occurred, so we know B exists. And we're trying to find what is the probability of A. So that B there, that's the condition. And that's where conditional probability comes from, because we know something has happened before. So we're going to get into this scenario, and I think scenarios are the best way to understand and develop an understanding of conditional probability. So we're going to start off with two easy questions, 1 and 2, and we're going to move on to some conditional probabilities, 3, 4, and 5. So the table we've been given, this here was a survey in Michigan, which is a US city, and they surveyed 478 students, and they were from rural, suburban, or urban schools. So urban are schools that are in the city. Suburban, for example, our school, Westlake Boys, would be a suburban school, and rural would be very out of town things. Of those students, they asked them, well, what's the most important thing for school? They asked if the grades was the most important thing. Maybe they thought being popular was the most important thing, and some of them might have thought sports were the most important thing. So we're going to get into some questions. So question 1, calculate the probability of a random student being from an urban school. So we're trying to find, well, what's the probability of U? And we always find the probability by using our F over T approach. So let's have a look at the question. The question's asking us about random students. So how many people from this table could be a random student? That's actually all of them. So any of those students could be that. So that means the denominator is going to be 478. And of those 478 people, how many of them went to an urban school? That's easy. That's the total 178 that we've been given there. So 178. And then what we do is we plug this into our calculator, because we do want a decimal answer. 178 divided by 478. That gets us to 0.3734. And I've rounded that to 4 decimal points, which is the standard rounding for probability questions. So hopefully that made sense. That was a nice and easy question. The next one, what proportion of students think grades are the most important part of being school? So what's the probability of, we'll call it G, occurring? Same approach, we want to continue using F over T. Our total, so what students are we looking at? So proportion of students. So we're kind of looking at all students this time around. So same thing, so that denominator is going to be the same. Of all of the students, how many think grades are the most important? That was that 247. So 247. We then again put that into our calculator. 247 divided by 468. Now that there is 0.5167 for DP. So those were the easy questions. Hopefully those are our bread and butters, and we're all confident with those. Now the next one is where there's going to be a condition. We're going to introduce a condition. So what percent of students from rural schools think sports is the most important part of school? So the question is students from rural schools. And I'm just going to contrast that with the previous question. So we were asked about random students and proportion of students. So hopefully we can see the condition that's been added. We've added the condition the student must be from a rural school. We've moved away from it being part of any student to students from rural schools. So what we're saying, what is the probability of sports being the most important part of school given they were from a rural school? And we're going to be using our F over T to answer this question as well. And then this time around, we're not interested for our T, we're not interested in the all students, so we don't care about that 478 number. We only care about students who are from rural schools. And that there is going to be 149. And of those 149 students, how many of them thought sports was the most important part of school? 142 of them did. So we've got 42 over 149. We put that into our calculator. That gets us to 0.2819. And I rounded that to 4 decimal points. So hopefully we can see that conditional element come through. So we don't care about all students. We now only care about students from rural schools. We're then going to look at question 4. If a student thinks being popular is the most important part of being in school, what is the probability they are from an urban school? So same scenario as before. We're not looking at all students. We know that student thinks being popular is the most important part of school. So there's another condition to this. Being popular must occur. So what's the probability that they are from an urban school? So probability of being from urban given they think popular is the most important part. Same deal, F over T. So our total, how many people? So we know they must be popular, or they must think popularity is the biggest thing. That's 141. So that's those 141 people. Of those 141, how many of them are from an urban school? Well, that's going to be 49 of them. So we can do that math. 49 divided by 141. That gets us to 0.3475. And again, I've rounded that to 4 decimal points. So that was the last one. And so hopefully, again, we're seeing that question 4, we didn't care about all students. We only cared about students who thought being popular at school was the most important part of school. And we're now going to move on to the hardest question, question 5. Are students from rural or urban schools more likely to think grades are the most important part of being school? So what this question is doing is it's asking us to compare rural and urban schools regarding the grades and whether or not they think they're the most likely to occur. So what we need to do is we need to do two things. We need to find, well, what's the probability of grades being the most important given they're from a rural school? And then the same thing, what's the probability of grades being the most important, but this time around given they're from an urban school? So we can go ahead and calculate the probability of both of those. So both of those would be the same F over T approach. So how many people are from a rural school? 149. And of those 149, how many of them thought grades were the most important? Well, that's going to be 57. And when we put that into a calculator, 57 divided by 149, that's going to be 0.3826. And that was rounded to 4 dp. We then need to do the same for urban students. So how many urban students are there in total? Well, there's 178. Of those 178, who thought the grades were the most important thing? That's 103. And then we're going to do that. So 103 divided by 178, 0.5787. And I'm going to round that to 4 dp. So we found the two probabilities. We now need to answer the question, who is more likely to think grades are more important, rural students or urban students? And in our case, it's a very strong answer. Urban students are definitely far more likely to think grades are more important than rural students. And there may be a number of reasons for that. Maybe rural students, they know, well, they want to do a trade or they want to maybe work on a farm if it's in rural America. So they think grades aren't important for that. And maybe urban students, maybe their parents are like lawyers and doctors and accountants and they want their children to go to university and you need good grades to do that. So a whole bunch of different factors that may influence that. So hopefully from this video, you can say you got a good understanding of how to find the probability of given events from a table. And hopefully you can definitely add on to that you are able to explain and answer questions to do with conditional probability. All right, thanks for watching, guys. Let's get into heaps of practice now.